Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft from the second overall spot using FantasyPros Draft Wizard. The roster positions for today's mock are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex spots, a kicker defense, and 5 bench spots. But before we can get on into this 12-team PPR mock draft from the second overall spot using FantasyPros Draft Wizard, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into this 12-team PPR mock draft from the second overall spot using FantasyPros Draft Wizard. So entering into your fantasy football draft, if you know, hey, I am going to be the second overall pick, then you should know going into your draft exactly who you are selecting. Because I would say 99.99999% of the time, Christian McCaffrey is going to be the number 1 overall pick. So your decision to me is between either CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill. Now, personally, if I was to rank both of these wide receivers, I would rank Tyreek Hill as the number 1 and CeeDee Lamb as the number 2, but it is not by some humongous margin, right? They are very close in my rankings, and I think if you like CeeDee Lamb slightly more than Tyreek Hill, then you are by no means a crazy person, right? I think that is a very normal thought to have, and maybe by late August, early September, maybe I change my tune and I like CeeDee Lamb more than Tyreek Hill. The reason why I lean slightly more towards Tyreek Hill is I feel as though Tyreek Hill is going to have more explosive games than CeeDee Lamb. I feel as though Tyreek Hill is the clear focal point of this Miami Dolphins offense. Even with Jalen Waddle, they just force feed the rock to Tyreek Hill all the time. CeeDee Lamb obviously is going to see a metric fuck ton of targets as well. So you can make a similar argument that I just made for Tyreek or CeeDee Lamb, right? Because these guys are 2 of the best receivers in the NFL. They're in 2 offenses that love to throw the football. So to me, if you're at the number 2 overall pick, you should be thinking between CeeDee or Tyreek, unless, of course, Christian McCaffrey falls to you, because if Christian McCaffrey fell to me, there wouldn't even be a debate in my head about this. It would just be instantly clicking on Christian McCaffrey. Since we have taken Tyreek Hill previously in mock drafts at the number 3 overall spot or at the number 2 overall spot, this time we'll go ahead and draft CeeDee Lamb, because again, the difference between the two in my mind is just so slight. You'd have to zoom in on a microscope to see the very minute difference, in my opinion, between CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill. And I think CeeDee Lamb could easily finish as the wide receiver number 1 in back-to-back years. The Dallas Cowboys haven't brought in any competition for CeeDee Lamb, so Dakota Prescott is just going to force feed him the rock. So I feel very confident in CD, just like I would with Tyreek Hill. After Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Close out the first round. The second round opens with Jonathan Taylor, Drizzy Drake London, Saquon Barkley, Maserati Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Adams, Chris Olave, Nico Collins, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Waddle away, Waddle, till the very next day, and Travis Etienne. So with our draft starting with CeeDee Lamb, I think we are going to end up going with 1 wide receiver and 1 running back with these next 2 picks. The order depends on my perception of the wide receivers and running backs still available. Quick note, Justin Jefferson goes at the 105. Jordan Addison has been caught doing a DUI, driving under the influence, or maybe it's drive DWI now. I'm not a fucking police officer, but what I will tell you is that I am kind of nervous that because of what happened to his teammate who just passed away due to a similar scenario, and because of the fact that he was driving a gazillion, he was driving Mach fucking 10 last season before the season, they could throw the book at Jordan Addison. Now, if you're someone that was previously pretty scared about Justin Jefferson, I think that would move him up slightly. but he's already my wide receiver 4 behind Tyreek, CD, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, so I'm not going to move him at all, but maybe that will affect some people's decision makings. For me, Jordan Addison is just off the board right now. I am not even thinking about clicking him unless he falls multiple rounds based upon ADP, because I don't know what's going to happen, so I just would rather stay away from him. So, looking at the board at running back, Kyren, Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, Devin Achane. Devin 2 Chains is my highest ranked running back right now. Looking at wide receiver, we got Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, DJ Moore. So out of this group, DJ Moore would be my highest ranked wide receiver. So based upon the process of elimination, since the number 1 overall pick took a running back, I think it's very unlikely that they double up on running back, go with a triple running back start. So I know for a fact I should be able to get Devin Achane. There's also a chance, based upon how wide receiver heavy the early rounds of fantasy football drafts are, that I don't even see the first team potentially even taking a running back at all. They go Christian McCaffrey and then double tap wide receivers. So to me, the debate is between Mike Evans and DJ Moore. I'm a huge Michael Pittman fan, but in the second, early third round, I mean, that just seems like a pick that is going to combust in right directly on your face, hit you with the fucking Bukake special. So I don't want anything to do with that. So it's either DJ Moore or Mike Evans. I think if you're comparing the two, Mike Evans is the safer bet. If you want a little bit more upside, you go with DJ Moore. Since we have taken DJ Moore and talked about DJ Moore a bunch recently, we will go with Mike Evans this time. Mike Evans is a guy that has printed 1,000-yard seasons every single year of his NFL career, and I believe that he's going to do it yet again. This is a guy that has 10, 12 plus touchdown upside. I think they're going to look to involve Chris Godwin in a better fashion this season, but I still think that Mike Evans is the clear number 1 target. He's definitely the biggest red zone threat on this team, and I think that Baker Mayfield is going to be solid yet again. So after Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel, and Devin Achane. So we got fucking sniped. Chris Kyle on Devin Achane, and that's tough because I did have Devin Achane ranked the highest, but I think that you can compare Pacheco and Henry to him. But, and this is a big but, Kim Kardashian style, we have not really taken Kyren Williams a bunch. Now, in the second round, he is a glaring red flag. Knowing that he's banged up right now really scares me. Since training camps are opening up very soon, if he shows up there, his hardiness, if he's gone or if he's there, is going to tell us a lot. If he is fully healthy, he's practicing like normal, then I'm going to start banging the drum for Kyren Williams. There's a clear injury risk with him, not because he's banged up right now, but because his career will show you that this is a guy that gets hurt lacing up his cleats in the morning, but the upside is very significant, even with Blake Corum. I do think they're going to look to utilize him less than last season. He's going to get less of a piece of the pie of this offense, but in the third round, the upside is undeniable based upon the information we know right now. It is a little bit scary, but in just a couple of weeks, it might be, hey, Kyren Williams fully good to go. He's going to play in preseason, all that, and then I would be popping a Chubb downstairs if I knew that. And if that is the case in the third round, I think Kyren Williams is a straight up steal. But if you're comparing Kyren Williams versus Derrick Henry or Pacheco in terms of risk, Kyren Williams is definitely the biggest risk right now compared to those other running backs. So after Kyren Williams, you see my boy Wiki, DJ Moore, Derrick Henry, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Allen, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Joe Mixon, Travis Kelce, Pat Mahomes, James Cook, Sam Laporta, Rashad with 2 A's, White, Cooper Kupp, Marky Mark Andrews, Malik Neighbors, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara. Something I have noticed a little bit more recently is that some people are taking Mr. Swift, Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Travis Kelce, ahead of Sam Laporta. Now, would I personally do that? No. But would I knock you for doing so? No, I wouldn't. Travis Kelce entered into last season hurt. And while he wasn't the old Travis Kelce that you're used to, he was still one of the best tight ends in fantasy football. Still, in my opinion, one of the best tight ends in the NFL, and he could easily leapfrog over Sam Laporta as the tight end number one. It wouldn't be shocking at all. And to be honest with you, based upon ADP, where Sam Laporta goes ahead of Kelce based upon ADP, I'd probably rather just, in a perfect scenario, right, wait a couple of picks and get Travis Kelce instead. But obviously that's not always going to be able to happen, and you're not always going to be in the correct draft spot to allow that. Now, 3 quarterbacks off the board, 3 tight ends off the board through essentially the first 4 rounds of the draft, right? Because we just have our pick and the next pick left. Quarterbacks are going to go in a variety of ranges based upon your league. There are going to be some leagues where, Josh Allen might go in the first round. Or maybe Mahomes goes in the first round or the second round, right? But there's going to be other leagues where your league mates are more temperate, they're more level-headed, and they wait till, I'd say, the third round to start kind of opening up that bag of drafting quarterbacks. For me, the third round is where it starts. I start to feel that itch, like, got any more crack type of deal, right? Now, am I drafting a quarterback in the third round all the time? No, but that's where my interest starts to peak. Earlier than that, I think it's a little bit crazy. With the tight ends, the third round is where I start to consider them. Now, based upon the fact that Mark Andrews went ahead of Trey McBride would definitely be a guy that is on top of my mind right now inside of the end of the 4th round. Now, the first team does not have a tight end, so it's very plausible that if we wait, we end up getting sniped on Trey McBride. But while I love Trey McBride, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like he is a must-draft player at the end of the 4th round, but the value to me is very appetizing, right? It's like a fucking 5-star Michelin chef meal cooked up by Gordon Ramsay. Now, I understand that we don't have this crazy long career of statistics for Trey McBride. All we have is last season, and not even the full season was he really that guy. But with the fact that they don't have a crazy allotment of weapons in Arizona, the fact that I believe Kyler Murray is a lot better of a quarterback than people give him credit for, and really just Maserati Marv is really the only other target. I like Trey McBride's upside. He is definitely a red zone threat, and while I think there's a much better chance that Laporta or Kelce finish as the tight end 1, I still have McBride in that same tier. I think he could easily do it. Now, if I was to handicap them, right, I would probably have it as longer odds, definitely longer odds compared to Laporta or Kelce, but I definitely think it's possible, and I think the Arizona Cardinals team might shock some people, at least offensively, with production this year. So we're going to go ahead and get Trey McBride. 89% chance that he would have been available at the next pick. Now, to me, we played the guessing game earlier, right? We waited on Devin A-Chain, and we got bent over a table. We got hit with the Alaskan bullworm. So we're going to go ahead and just get our guy. So after Trey McBride, Stephon Diggs, and David Montgomery. Now, we only have 1 running back, but based upon the fact that this is a 2-flex league, and honestly, even in just a 1-flex league, I would probably be aiming for the wide receiver position here. I'm a big Aaron Jones fan, and I think a lot of people are greatly overthinking Aaron Jones due to his age and due to his production last season. Now, once he was fully healthy and once Matt LaFleur took the kind of restraints off of Aaron Jones, we ended up seeing Aaron Jones be pretty successful. But obviously, if you drafted Aaron Jones last year, you felt as though you were hit in the back of the head by a pipe. So I get it, right? I like Stevenson. I'm fine with James Conner, but I just think in the 6th round, there's going to be some more running backs that I like. So I want to take a shot on a wide receiver that I like here. And for me, it's between Amari Cooper, Zay Flowers, Christian Kirk, and T. Higgins. I thought initially, like earlier on the offseason process, when I started to make videos after the NFL draft, again, I really thought maybe T. Higgins would get traded. But now that seems kind of like a no-go, which could have been huge for his value, could have been really bad for his value. He got traded to a shitty situation. But I think T. Higgins is a lot better than what we saw last year. But I think Zay Flowers or Christian Kirk could be legitimate league winners, and same thing could be said about Amari Cooper. I typically don't feel like I can get Amari Cooper in the 5th round, so I'm going to go with him here. I understand that Deshaun Watson is like just a blinking red X for a lot of people, right? A blinking no because of what he did to the masseuses, right? Just like people's opinion on him. This guy seems like a fucking bad guy, but also because he didn't look the best last year. But Amari Cooper was successful last year with cool Joe Flacco. He was solid with Deshaun Watson. If you actually go ahead and extrapolate all of his stats with Watson, even when Deshaun Watson was not very good at all when he returned in late 2022, following the suspension, 2023, he was pretty hit or miss. But again, even with not the best version of Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper was still able to be very successful and still projects as being able to be a pretty reliable wide receiver too, in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and take Amari Cooper here of the Cleveland Browns. Again, do I think Deshaun Watson's going to flip the page and be significantly better than last season? Probably not, but I also think he could look slightly better, and that would definitely be a bump up for Mr. Amari Cooper. After Amari Cooper, Ron Jones, Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, Ramondre Stevenson, Javonte Williams, T. Higgins, Najee Harris, Terry McLaurin, Christian Kirk, George Pickens. 6th round opens with Dalton Kincaid, Lamar Jackson, Rashee Rice, Zamir White, James Conner, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Swift, Anthony Richardson, Jalen Warren, and Keenan Allen. To me, Javonte Williams in the 5th round is basically like lighting your fucking pick on fire. I get why some people might be fine drafting him in underdog best ball drafts, right? Because he goes a lot later. But in the 5th round, nothing Sean Payton has said so far in this offseason process has told me that Javonte Williams is locked in to be the running back one. It seems like they want to maybe use a committee system, and it seems like this is a competition that Javonte Williams could end up being the biggest loser in, and losing despite all of the pedigree he had coming out of college, and despite the fact that basically everyone, myself included, was talking about how great of a prospect Javonte Williams was. The upside is definitely there in a Sean Payton system, because we know Sean Payton is a pretty effective with the run game, right? But at the same time, it's like in the 5th round, a guy that I don't feel like is guaranteed to be the starter. Like, that scares the ever-living shit out of me, so I'm not going to do it. So looking at the quarterbacks here, CJ Stroud, I definitely think is a pretty safe play with some decent upside. Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray. I'm fine waiting here. Like, if I want a quarterback, I could probably get him in the 7th round. This person may or may not end up taking a quarterback. Now, maybe they look to get the Stephon Diggs, CJ Stroud stack, and I do definitely think that while stacking is much more of a best ball principle, I think it is definitely something that you could look to do in redraft. I'm not saying you have to stack, but I do definitely think it adds to the upside of your team weekly. So I think that a lot of the time, if I have the stack potential, right, if I'm sitting there with Stephon Diggs, and I'm not really drafting Stephon Diggs, but if I was sitting there with Diggs, to me, it would be like, okay, now I'm just going to draft CJ Stroud, right? Get that extra upside. But right now, without any Houston Texans receivers, it's not like there's nothing speaking to me. The devil versus the angel on my shoulder aren't really having some crazy debate on taking CJ Stroud. Now, in the 6th round, the running backs are starting to get gross. I think we'll probably pull the trigger in the 7th round, because while I am a Raheem Mostert stan, this person does already have 3 running backs in front of me, so it's very unlikely that they end up taking a running back here. And even if I don't end up taking a quarterback in the next round, I probably lean closer to running back. Look at receivers: Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Jaden Reed. Chris Godwin would be a part of this debate more if I didn't draft Mike Evans, but since I got Mike Evans, I don't really think you want to be investing too much of your early round selections on the Buccaneers. Now, the Buccaneers are an offense that I think are going to be better than most people would project, but they're also not like one of the premier offenses in the NFL, right? You could talk yourself into drafting CeeDee Lamb and into drafting Jake Ferguson because of how many points the Cowboys are going to score. You could talk yourself into drafting Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill because of how many points the Dolphins are going to score. You could talk yourself into, maybe if the ADPs were a little bit different, right? Drafting I really like Stephon Diggs, so drafting Nico Collins and Tank Dell on the same team, right? But when we're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and while I like Baker Mayfield, right, it's not a 0% chance that he doesn't end up going back to just being fucking awful. So it's a bit of a concern for me. So I'm not really going to be taking Chris Godwin here. It's between Deontay Johnson, Jada Reed, and D-Hop. I was pretty off of DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins did end up seeing a decent jump in terms of points per game with Will Levis compared to with the other quarterbacks in Tennessee. But to me, it's like I just want to go with the more upside pick. And to me, that is Jaden Riley-Reed of the Green Bay Packers. This is a guy that to me has the upside of a top 12 wide receiver because of how good the Green Bay Packers offense is. Now, there's also a solid chance that, guess what? The Green Bay Packers end up using Christian Watson or maybe Romeo Doubs, or the outside shot Dontavian Wicks is the wide receiver one. That's definitely possible. But in the 6th round, the 7th round is where you want to start taking more risks, right? Earlier on, you could be safer. But as you get later into the draft, I like to rip the Band-Aid off, like to get a little bit more risky here. And so I'm going to go with Jaden Reed. I think Deontay Johnson or DeAndre Hopkins are probably safer, though, on paper. After Jaden Reed, Hollywood Brown and Kyle Pitts. So it's either quarterback or running back here, but I would rather go with the running back. I think Tony Pollard's just a guy I'm probably never going to end up drafting. Now, if he ended up being the lead running back on the team ahead of Tajay Spears for the whole season, like, it wouldn't be that crazy. But I would rather just have Tajay Spears because I think he's better. Like, Tony Pollard is allergic to scoring touchdowns. So we're going to go ahead and go with Raheem Mostert here. Raheem Mostert was a top 5 running back in fantasy football last year. And while everyone and their mother, me included, loves Devin 2 Chains, when push comes to shove, there's a solid chance that Raheem Mostert out-touches him again. So let me go ahead and get a running back that could be a league winner in the 7th round. That definitely seems like a good idea, in my opinion. Now, maybe the Dolphins go full in workhorse running back Devin Chain, right? But I don't think that's very likely. And based upon his build, that's very unlikely. And based upon how Mike McDaniel, sorry, I called him the wrong fucking Josh McDaniels, Mike McDaniel. Based upon how Mike McDaniel coaches, seems very unlikely that he would just roll out a workhorse running back. That's really not his scheme, unless, like, if the Dolphins had, like, Saquon Barkley, I guess it would be different. But after Raheem Mostert, Evan Ingram, George Kittle, Jake Ferguson, CJ Stroud, Dickie Dak Prescott, Chris Godwin, Kyler Murray, who was hoping maybe would come back to us in the 8th round, but it was pretty unlikely. Lad McConkey, Zach Moss, Tony Pollard, Deontay Johnson, Jonathan Brooks, Zeke, Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, Tajay Spears, Christian Watson, Brian Robinson, Joe Burrow, and Austin Eckler. Now, since we waited so long to take our 2nd running back, and since our 2nd running back is a guy that I don't project to be the number 1 running back on his own team, I want to be taking more shots at running back in this range. Now, a video came out yesterday as you guys are watching this, or maybe it was on Sunday, I'm not sure, but it's a video of Nick Chubb, and this dude is squatting, I believe was the video, with what looked like 7,000 tons, right? There was basically 2 Ford F-150s on that bad boy. And even with the injury, like, look, I am definitely more of someone that thinks that Nick Chubb is riskier than some other people. I've seen people be very confident in Nick Chubb. For me, but seeing that video, man, it's like, fuck, dude, if he's already lifting like that, if anyone's going to be a superhuman, right? If anyone's going to have some crazy regenerative power to be able to recover from a torn ACL, MCL, his leg turning into a fucking right angle from algebra class, right? That geometry class, I guess. I did not do very good in geometry. My teacher fucking pissed me off back in high school. Shout out to you. That's my teacher that my one friend, I'm not going to mention his name. I don't think he would care. He is in my wedding. He was co-captain on the bowling team with me. He fucking fell asleep in the back of our math class, and the teacher had him drug tested. Same teacher. Never liked her. But 9-inch Nicholas Chubb here will be the pick. Definitely more risky, right? If you're looking for the safer pick, go Gus Bus or go Devin Singletary. But based upon the running back core we have, I want to be shooting for more upside compared to safety. Maybe you think the other way, but I'm going to go with 9-inch Nicholas Chubb again, strictly because of that video. It did actually really sway my decision-making there. I was hoping that Jordan Love Me Tender, Love Me Sweet would come back, but of course the team ahead of us took him. But never know when you're doing a draft. Like, just because they have 3 running backs doesn't necessarily mean that there's no way they draft a 4th. Like, it could have definitely happened. So Jordan Love, Rome Odunze. So we're back up on the clock here. And honestly, we may even want to tap the running back button again here. Something you could do, which is not something that I'm going to do, is draft both Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford on the exact same team, because you are guaranteed to get the number one running back that way in Cleveland, right? You are guaranteed to get the guy that's seeing a lot of the touches. Like, it might be Jerome Ford early on, and then it is the passing of the torch, the passing of the baton to Nick Chubb later on in the season, which I think is very probable. But we already have Amari Cooper, and I am not going to draft 3 Cleveland Browns onto my team. So the question is, do we want the running back here or the wide receiver? Jordan Addison, like I said, off my board. JSN would be the wide receiver click here, but I think because we have Kyron, kind of risky, Raheem Mostert, not the running back one on his team, and then 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, who could just not play all season, definitely possible. We'll go running back here. Normally we go with Gus Edwards, but Devin Singletary is falling. I think he is the odds-on favorite to be the number one running back in New York. Now, the debate between him and Tyrone Tracy on who's going to be the number one running back, I think it will lean with Devin Singletary, who's the veteran. Devin Singletary was very productive last year in Houston, but the comparison of the Houston offense to the Giants offense, it's like going from being in a 5-star hotel, living in a mansion, to living in some fucking crack whorehouse, right? So I'm pretty, like, it's not the most optimistic thing that Devin Singletary is now a Giant instead of a Houston Texan, but what I will say is he looked good enough to where if the Giants offense is able to take a better leap compared to last season, because Brian Daboll is a pretty solid head coach, we're going to lean with Devin Singletary here. But again, gun to the head, I would probably lean Gus Edwards because I just think he's a little bit safer. But we're going to play the ADP game here and draft a guy with the higher ADP. After Devin Singletary, Jordan Addison, Jerome Ford, Gus Edwards, Brian Thomas Jr., Zach Charbonnet, JSN, Trey Benson, Chase Brown, Keon Coleman, Tyler Lockett in my pocket skirt, Joshua Palmer, Jamison Williams, Antonio Gibson, Jacoby Myers, J.K. Dobbins, Curtis Samuel, Blake Corum, Kendre Miller, and Chuba Hubbard. Another note on Gus Edwards, I draft him so often because I think he's going to get that stranglehold, right? He's going to force choke fucking Kylo Ren style the running back position on that team. He's going to have a fulcrum grip. He's going to firmly grasp it. And I think that means that Gus is going to be the guy there. There's a lot of similarities, like the offensive coordinator, formerly of the Ravens, likes Gus Edwards, and we know that the Chargers are going to run the rock gently down the stream with Devin Singletary, with Gus Edwards and the running back core because of John Harbaugh. That John Harbaugh, dude, I'm so bad with the names. The Harbaugh brother that's on the Chargers, not the one that's on Jim or John. Fuck, I think it's Jim. And now in the comments, people are like, Nick, you don't know ball. You don't know the guy's fucking first name. Well, their names are John and Jim, which are very close together. They're both J's. Fucking, I don't know, man. Now I sound like an idiot. I'm just ranting for no reason. Who gives a shit, right? One of the Harbaughs, guy from Michigan, is coaching the Chargers, and they love to run the ball. He loves to run the ball. It's the Harbaugh way. So we're back up on the clock here. We don't have any 49ers, so I don't really love Brock Purdy in this scenario, but every team has a quarterback outside of this one, but I know people are going to start drafting backup quarterbacks, so I can't really fully wait. So we're going to go with the receiver, and then we're going to go ahead and get our quarterback because team number one already has Jordan. Love me tender, love me sweet. So at wide receiver, at this point in the draft, you're just searching for upside. There's no real reason to take the safe bet. Brandon Cooks is a guy I like, but we already have Lamb, so I'm not really going to click on him. Mike Williams, I think, has significant upside if Devontae Adams isn't traded there. Now, Mike Williams is a guy that notoriously kind of gets hurt. He's one of those guys that kind of gets hurt tying his shoes up, right? He gets hurt brushing his teeth. He accidentally fucking deep throats his toothbrush and chokes on it, right? But the upside is there. There's a lot of reports early on, kind of, I'm reading, like it seems like he could be ready for week 1. So I'm going to go with Mike Williams here, even if to some that seems like a shit pick. I just like the upside. After that, we see Rico Dowdle, Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is a guy that's kind of just off my board right now. Most recent reports on him are that while he's a very talented player, he is not working with blocking. He's not an effective blocker, and the Raiders want to run the ball, obviously. That's Pierce's MO, the head coach. And if he can't block, he's not going to be touching the field. We kind of just we've seen that happen before, like with Gesicki in Miami. So we're going to go with Brock Purdy here. If you want to hunt for the most upside, it would be Jaden Daniels, but I think we can honestly probably draft Brock Purdy and Jaden Daniels, assuming they have 2 different bye weeks. Brock Purdy is by number 9. I don't know why I couldn't read that. It's right on the top of the fucking screen, right in front of my face. And Jaden Daniels is by 14. Normally, I am just a 1 quarterback guy. But if I'm drafting a guy like Jaden Daniels, I want to go ahead and get another quarterback. So I want to go with Big Cock Brock Purdy of the 49ers. So we got 9-inch Nick Chubb and Big Cock Brock on the exact same team. Brock Purdy's ADP pick, they've got him ranked 75 overall. I don't know about all that. I love Brock Purdy. He's in a great system. He's going to be solid. Brock Purdy's never going to win you your league, though, on his back. Like, he's not a rushing quarterback. He's not a guy that I project is going to pass for like 4,500 yards, a gazillion touchdowns. But he's going to be reliable enough for you to, in the 11th round, like, that's fine. So after Brock Purdy, you don't necessarily need the most elite quarterback to win your fantasy league. If Trey McBride pops up, I have one of the best tight ends. I have a solid running back room, a solid wide receiver room, then it doesn't really matter as long as my quarterback isn't a flaming pile of dog shite. So after Brock Purdy, David Njoku, Rashid Shaheed, Marshawn Lloyd, Khalil Shakira, Jaleel McLaughlin, Brandon Cooks, Romeo Throw Up the Dobbs, Tyler Algier, Donovan Tavian Wicks. The Ravens defense, that's the worst pick of the draft. You can't be taking a defense that early. Ty Chandler, Dallas Goedert, Khalil Herbert, Dalton Schultz, TJ Hawkinson, New York Jumbo Jets defense, Pat Freiermuth, Cole Kmet, Luke Musgrave, and Jared Goff, the Goffinator. So we're going to go ahead and take Jaden Daniels here. I know, like, if I take Jordan Love, I'm not taking a backup quarterback, right? Because I believe heavily in Jordan Love. I believe in what I saw last season. I believe in Joe Hendry, but this is the computer, and also normal people are a little bit fucking stupid, right? Like, in my opinion, like, even some of you guys might, now I'm not saying you're stupid, but some of you guys, your strategy might be, hey, even if I get Jordan Love, I want a second quarterback. For me, if I'm drafting Jordan Love, when am I ever going to bench Jordan Love for another quarterback? Unless Jordan Love just falls off of the edge of the earth, right? He has a tremendous fall down. Like, I don't really project that to happen, so I'm not going to go ahead and handcuff him with some other quarterback that I'm never going to play. Whereas with Brock Purdy, who I think is going to be solid, like, Jaden Daniels could be a fucking league winner, right? Based upon his legs, based upon the fact that I like what I saw out of him in college last year at LSU. Now, he doesn't have this crazy CVS receipt of history because he really only popped off last year, but I think Jaden Daniels is worth this pick in the 12th round for upside. Now, since this is only a 5-bench draft instead of 6 benches, the safer bet probably would not be drafting Jaden Daniels, but I want to go ahead and get him because, again, I do so many of these fucking drafts. I have never drafted Jaden Daniels in a mock draft video. I also basically only ever draft one quarterback, and I don't think you need to draft the exact same way in every single draft to win, and it's good to try out different things, see how I like my team. Maybe I finish this draft, I'm like, shit, I shouldn't have drafted Jaden Daniels. I should have drafted another receiver, another running back, and then maybe I change my tune. So, looking at things right now, it's going to be rough because we're only going to finish this draft with either 4 running backs or with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 receivers. And in a 2-flex league, you typically want more receivers than that, and that's because we drafted 2 quarterbacks. But again, it's an experiment. I wanted to do it, and I think that with Brock Purdy, it makes sense. The question here is running back or wide receiver. I think any running back you draft here, you're not starting, right? This is just the super high upside shot. And based upon the knowledge we have right now, where it's not like, hey, this guy's clearly the running back 2, right? Roshan, I don't think is clearly the running back 2 in Chicago right now on paper. Like, so I'm just going to go with the receiver because this is a league where you're going to be wanting to start 4 receivers at all times, 2 running backs. I think the wide receiver is more important. So we're going to go wide receiver here. And I think we're just going to go ahead and go with, normally we draft Jahan Dotson, so we actually won't draft him this time. I like Jahan Dotson. I liked him a lot going into last season. He ended up being a bust, but I think that's because of quarterback play. I think Jaden Daniels could fix things. I were to go with Demario Douglas, who I think is my favorite receiver here. I don't think, I fucking know he's my favorite receiver on the Patriots. I loved what I saw out of him last year. I think we could see a lot more consistency this season, a lot more touchdowns this season with better quarterback play than what we got out of Mystic Mac Jones and what we got out of, and the guy has a nickname and I can't even think of his name. I'm blanking on him. Bailey Zappi, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go with Darnell Mooney. I saw a picture of Michael Wilson where he looked absolutely fucking jacked standing next to Kyler. That's going to move the needle for some people. Not for me, though. After Demario Douglas, Roshan Johnson, Elijah Moore, Damian Pierce, Jalen Wright, Donta Foreman, San Francisco 49ers defense, Hunter Henry, Jerry Jeudy, Alexander Madison, Josh Downs, and Kenneth Gainwell. Bunch of kickers, or a bunch of defenses, and a kicker. Caleb Williams, everyone's favorite kicker, Justin Tucker, and Miles Sanders, which is just lighting a pick on fire. So here, we're going to go ahead and go with the kicker first. We're going to go ahead and get Harrison Butker is not everyone's favorite kicker. We all know that. I still think Harrison, again, for me, say what you want about what Harrison Butker said. Again, I'm not here to have some fucking political debate or whatever. I don't even remember exactly what he said off the top of my head, but I know a lot of people didn't like him. People taking fucking shots at him at the ESPYs, as if anyone watches the ESPYs, let's be honest. But again, for me, in fantasy, I don't really, when I draft my team, it's not based on morals, right? It's not based on my opinion on who the player is, who the guy is. It's based upon what the fantasy score they're going to produce. I want to go ahead and go Aubrey here, though, of the Dallas Cowboys, and then we're going to go with the defense. Now, the strategy on drafting a defense is going to be you want to draft the defense that is going up against an opponent that is not so hot in week number 1. Meaning, as long as the defense is halfway competent, it won't move the needle for me, right? Just because the Dolphins have a defense on paper that's solid, just because the 49ers have this great defense, the Jets have this great defense, doesn't matter. All that fucking matters is who they're playing in week number 1. The Jets are playing the 49ers. They might get fucking cream pied in that game. So I'm going to go with the Texans here. I don't know their schedule. You used to be able to just click here and see the 2024 schedule. Once we get closer to late August, I will remember all of the matchups for week number 1. There will be a video on defenses to draft. And then in week number 1, if you didn't listen, there'll be a defenses to stream video as well. So right now, we'll go with the Texans, but that's not my actual defense that I would pick. Again, maybe the Texans have a good matchup week 1. I just honestly don't remember. So that's how you draft a defense. You draft the defense playing up against the softest opponent in week number 1, or a team maybe you believe is going to start off slow. So our team, to recap, is Big Cock Brock Purdy at quarterback. Our running backs are Kyron and Raheem Mostert. Our receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans. Our tight ends, Trey McBride. Our flexes are Amari Cooper and Jaden Reed. Our defense is the Texans, kicker Brandon Aubrey. Our bench is comprised of 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Devin Singletary, Mike Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Demario Douglas. Going back, if I could go back in time, I probably wouldn't take Jaden Daniels because it's a 5-bench league, but I wanted to get that upside. And I don't think I'm going to be too mad about it at the end of the day. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Leave a comment down below if you got any questions, or if you're like, Nick, I love this pick, I hate this pick. Let me know down below in the comment section. I hope you guys are enjoying College Football 25. Anyone that plays video games, I was playing that shit all day. This video is being currently recorded. It's 12:31 a.m. Eastern Standard Time because I was playing the game all day. It was very fun. So make sure you guys, actually no free ads for them. I love you guys all so much. Make sure you guys click on the link in the video description because there's going to be other videos down there, or check out one of the videos on your screen right now. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. Whether you are new to the channel or not, leave a like on today's video. Love you guys all so much. Hope you all have a great one. Have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, good boy.